Welcome to City and State TV. I'm Morgan Pehme. Today, our guest is the first woman to ever be named an ambassador emeritus by the country of Mexico. The distinction was in recognition of her exceptional career as a career diplomat. She is now the Consul General of Mexico in New York. Sandra Fuentes, thank you so much for joining us on City and State TV.
It's a pleasure.
I was hoping that you could start by telling our readers and our viewers what are your foremost priorities as Consul General?
Well, all consul generals, we have perhaps the largest network of consulates that any country has in another one. We have 50 consulates in the United States, and I guess the priority for all the consular officers is the protection of the Mexicans in the United States, the protection of their rights, the protection of their safety, the protection of their families, and of course to advance their inclusion in the social tissue of this country that they have decided to adopt as theirs.
And in terms of your interaction with New York in specific, the consulate has had a number of local initiatives here, but what is your mission in regards to influencing and interacting with New York City and New York State government?
Well, the relationship is very different with the state and with the city. I must say that the state is like a heaven for immigrants in general. It's a city that is constituted of immigrants. Therefore, Mexicans in the city consider it like a safe place to be in. And we do have a very strong working relationship with the city authorities in everything that you can think of in terms of education, in terms of health, in terms of financial empowerment, in terms of illiteracy. I mean, we have so many programs with the city. The city sometimes finances a program. The city sometimes helps us find sponsors for the programs. But we do have a very, very good working relationship with the city. With the state is different. I mean, it's a very big state. We have many, between 60,000 and 80,000 workers in the dairy farms, in the vegetables, in upstate New York, and therefore the relationship is not as close as it is with the authorities in New York City. I visit the farms regularly. We work very closely with the farmers' union. We do have very good allies in the farmers themselves, because they realize that without the Mexican labor they wouldn't be in business, basically. But sometimes our community is not as well treated as it is in the city.
On the state level, there's been a great deal of discussion about whether there needs to be a farm workers' bill of rights. Is that a type of initiative that you would be pushing for as the Consul General?
I would, but I think that the best solution for everything would be a whole, a comprehensive immigration reform that would, of course, give rights to all immigrants, and of course I worry about the Mexican immigrants in the United States.
In terms of the President's recent executive order, what has been the country of Mexico's response to it? Do you feel like that's a positive step forward? And what other initiatives would you like to see? I mean, obviously you talked about comprehensive immigration reform, but how is that affecting your work as the Consul General?
I would say that within the political atmosphere that exists in Washington today, the fact that President Obama did what he did is very courageous. Of course, we welcome it, and we're going to work very, very hard in order to get as many Mexicans to benefit from the executive action. But of course, we would have liked to see something that encompasses the 11 million undocumented people that live in the United States, out of which a vast majority is Mexican.
Do you have a sense in New York City or New York State of how many Mexicans the executive order will actually affect?
Well, it's difficult to say, but we do, the government has stated that out of the 5 million people that will benefit from this executive action, about 3.8 will be Mexicans. So even in New York City, of course, the majority will be Mexicans. And I must say something that is important. The cities are going forward. Cities are not waiting for Washington to do the immigration revamp that is needed, because the cities need the labor. When I called on former Mayor Bloomberg, he told me, Ambassador, we need you. So that is why we treat you very well, because I thank him for that. And I must say that Mayor de Blasio has been wonderful in convening Democrat mayors from other big cities that also live and depend heavily on immigration. And they are advancing the cause. And I think that this is something that we have to be very thankful for.
Did you participate in this immigration forum that Mayor de Blasio convened this week?
I participated in a cocktail the night before. And I must say, I thought it was a great initiative.
Well, one of the kind of forward-thinking initiatives that the city has tried to bring about is the introduction of municipal IDs. I know that you've met with Speaker Mark Viverito. Do you feel like this is a positive step? Do you think that this is the type of initiative that our city needs to be showing?
Definitely. But as long as you get your own ID and everybody gets an ID, all New Yorkers, I think the ID has to say, I am a New Yorker, not I am an undocumented person living in New York. And that, I think, is the clue. And I think the city is doing very well in getting discounts and getting free entrances to museums and parks, etc. And I hope that it will result attractive to New Yorkers in general. So that it is not a scarlet letter for the undocumented workers that take it out, and immediately people will know that they have no other document.
Do you think there is an appetite among Mexicans here in the city to obtain that type of identification? Because I know that you reissue passports to Mexican citizens even if their time has expired, right? Their immigration visa has expired, unlike a number of other nations. So you still, as a Mexican, generally have the identification necessary to obtain the main documents you need to work, right?
But not only passport, we also issue an ID, a consular ID, and it is one of the best IDs ever given by the Mexican authorities. It is completely tamper-proof. It is. We have to have proof of residence. We have to have a proof of address. We have a direct connection with data in Mexico in the ministry. So the IDs that we issue, we have been working with the city so that their ID is similar to ours, and we are very much hoping that our ID will be exchanged for the New York ID.
And in November of 2012, New York City elected our first ever Mexican-American elected official, Carlos Menchaca. Was that a significant milestone for the country of Mexico? What does that mean to you?
I think it was November 2013, if I'm correct. No, was
it yes, 2013.
2013, yes. Of course, I am very proud. I mean, New York City needs Mexican Americans doing public policy for the Mexicans that live here. Carlos is not born and educated in New York. He was born in El Paso, educated in California. But the commission that he heads at the city council is very, very important. It's an immigration commission. We do work very closely with him. And of course, his district is also a district where the majority of inhabitants are Mexican. Sunset Park and Red Hook in Brooklyn. I want to see more Mexicans in local politics, both in the city and in the tri-state area. They are just coming of age now. We are very new to the city and to the area. I think the first Mexicans ever arrived here in the 70s. So the children are now getting to be interested in entering politics, and I am very much looking forward to help them learn how to become leaders in order to do lobby, do advocacy. I mean, we are the largest population in the United States. We have to have a better representation, both locally and nationally.
The Mexican-American population is growing a great deal in this area. It's estimated that by the 2020s that Mexican-Americans may constitute the largest Latino population here in New York City. And yet there hasn't seemed to be a commensurate representation in government for Mexican-Americans. And I've seen two reasons cited. One is because of a low number of actual citizens. I believe 51% of the population are actual citizens. And then there's also a geographical diffusion, that there aren't just kind of clusters of Mexican Americans in certain areas, and so they don't constitute the majority.
But we're very well represented in California. We're very well represented in Texas, in Illinois. I mean, in places where Mexicans have been there for a long time. I think the exception is the East Coast, the Northeast, because as I tell you, they only arrived a few years ago.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask, when you say that you're trying to build that civic participation among Mexican Americans, through what means are you trying to do that?
Well, we're working in leadership programs. We've even we're actually working with the American Jewish Council. To learn from them. There has already been a group of leaders that have visited Israel at their invitation, and we want to be as powerful as they are when it comes to lobby government.
And in terms of what you would like to see our government, both on the New York City level and on the New York State level, do to help Mexican Americans, I mean, I'm sure the number one initiatives you're talking about have to be enacted on a national level, comprehensive immigration reform. But what can really be done on a local level that will be of great benefit to Mexican Americans?
Well, the first thing is to give them access to education. Education in the United States is very expensive, and our people sometimes cannot afford it. Most of the times cannot afford it. So if they could have same-state tuition, for example, in the tri-state area, that would definitely be something that we would very much appreciate. Access to health services, even if they're undocumented. We do have a strong working relationship with various health providers, and we are engaged more in a program of prevention because the population that comes lives in a very different environment, and therefore they find themselves often sick, and they have many diseases that they're not aware of and that they had never had in Mexico.
And you recently wrote an op-ed in the Syracuse Post-Standard talking about the 20-year anniversary of Nafta, which you were involved in negotiating on behalf of Mexico. And you point out the robust trade relationship between New York and Mexico, billions of dollars in trade. What do we need to do to improve our economic relationship between the state and Mexico? How can we continue to grow already a relationship that is so beneficial to both your country and our state?
I think it's more at a national level than at a state level. I think that now there is a revolution in energy, and I do see a free energy area constituted by Mexico, United States, and Canada. We can become a major force in the world now with a new shale gas in the United States. President Peña Nieto just enacted a law that will change the energy panorama in Mexico and the energy industry, not only oil and gas, but also alternative energies. And of course, Canada with the, I don't know the name in English of the sand that they tar sands. And I think that we can together be a major player internationally if we join forces. But the trade is actually booming. Trade between Mexico and the United States is $1.3 billion a day. And we do sell, of course, our major export to the United States is cars. We are also very strong in the aeronautical industry, computers. We do have a very important manufacturing plant in Mexico that is thriving. And what is important is that for every dollar that we exchange, 40 cents originate in the United States. So a piece might go and cross the border 2, 3, 4 times before it is actually used in a car or in an airplane or in a computer. And I think that is something that Americans do not know well.
Ambassador, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us on City and State TV.
My pleasure.